This USC Dornsife Los Angeles Times poll shows that the attitudes about Jerry Brown are relatively unchanged. I mean, these numbers have been pretty consistent throughout his governorship. He has a 49% approval rating in the poll. That's still under 50% as he has been consistently, but the spread between approval and disapproval is still 10 points in his favor.
We asked Californians a whole range of questions on what they thought not only about the state's budget deficit, but various potential remedies to solve that deficit.
In January, the governor introduced his spending plan for the upcoming year, and he pegged the deficit at $9 billion. Every May, the governor is expected to revise that plan, and when Brown released his budget revision a couple of weeks ago, the deficit had ballooned to $16 billion.
Governor Brown has proposed a ballot initiative that will be voted on this November that would raise the state income tax among the Californians' highest earners and would raise the state sales tax for a temporary period of time as well.
One of the really interesting findings of the poll shows that at first blush, when just asked straight about the governor's tax increase proposal, has very strong support. 59% of those who responded said they favor the governor's tax plan. 36% say that they're opposed. But when you phrase the question differently and phrase it in the context of whether or not you trust your government in Sacramento to do the right thing, support for the measure drops. It goes from a 23-point spread to an 8-point spread.
What we're beginning to see is that the ongoing news coverage of the state budget deficit and the budget crisis that they're dealing with in Sacramento is making voters more distrustful and more skeptical of state government. In other words, California voters, at least California independent voters, are thinking, yeah, I'm willing to spend more money on the schools, but I'm not sure I trust those guys to spend it.
When the governor released his revised budget in May, one of the proposals that he introduced in an effort to try to save the state some money was to reduce the work week for most state workers from 40 hours to 38 hours.
And for state offices to be open only 4 days each week rather than 5. Californians overwhelmingly think that state employees ought to work slightly fewer hours in order to save money. They're not nearly as positive about the idea of state office buildings being closed 1 day a week.
Particularly among decline-to-state voters, voters that are not registered as Democrats or Republicans or with any other political party. If you just ask about the policy, 58% of independents say they would vote for it. It's 20 points better than the number who say they would vote against. But if you, again, you start to make some of the arguments against it, just a couple, those numbers flip, and it goes from 43% in favor to 47% against.
What's really interesting about these numbers, though, is that Latino voters in particular are very much opposed to both the cut in hours for state employees and the closure of state offices 1 day a week.
Heading into the next few months, this poll really helps narrow the focus for the Brown campaign. You can see how this campaign is going to be fought in the fall. It's for capturing those key voters in the political center that are going to make or break Brown's tax initiative.